And welcome to Newsmax Now. I'm your host, Miranda Kahn. Thanks for joining us. We have a lot to get to today on this kind of special edition of Newsmax Now. So let's go ahead and bring in our panel. Joining me now on the national anchor desk, we have with us the founder of Freedom Watch and former federal prosecutor, Larry Klayman. Nice to see you again. Deja vu, right?
As always.
We're also pleased to have with us via Skype, we have with us attorney at law, Gloria Allred. Thank you both for joining us today. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Mutual.
Thank you.
All right, let's get started. Let's talk about our big story today. There are no tapes of President Trump's conversation with former FBI Director James Comey. Or at least if there are, Trump isn't aware of them. Today, he tweeted that he doesn't personally have any. Earlier this month, Comey testified that he hoped that there were tapes of his conversations with the president. Now, this discussion of tapes, as you both know, it's been going on for quite some time since the president sent out his first tweet in regards to Comey's firing. Then Comey himself also brought up the idea of tapes during his testimony a few weeks ago, but now both are saying they don't have any. So let's start with you. What do you make, first of all, of the president's tweet, and why did it take so long for him to respond to this? Because this is something that the media has been pounding him on, and so have lawmakers.
Right. Well, I think it slipped out of his mouth at the time. What he was trying to say is that Comey should be careful about what he says because there are tapes. Now, today, he's kind of intimating that there are tapes, I just don't have them. It's probably the intelligence agencies that have been surveilling the White House. In fact, a lot of these leaks about what goes on at White House meetings, such as with Russian ambassadors and others, probably is the result of surveillance. And we know that during the Clinton era, the Israelis actually had audio tapes of Bill Clinton with Monica Lewinsky. So the White House is not as secure as people think. But it was couching by the president to try to keep Comey, quote, honest.
Gloria, do you think this idea of tapes being out there is going to go away now?
Really? Slipped out of his mouth, Larry? Come on. This is a president who decided that he was going to tweet it. That was not just an accident. It was something he decided to do, and he did it. And it resulted perhaps in unintended consequences. Perhaps he thought he was going to be really cute in tweeting it, but it may be that this potentially could be used in an obstruction of justice investigation. And look what it led to. It led to Comey actually putting out there his own memo through a friend, through a law professor, a memo of his discussion with President Trump and what he says that President Trump alleged in that conversation in the White House, that somehow he should not go forward with the investigation of his former friend Flynn, perhaps his present friend Flynn, national security advisor. And ultimately, it led to a special counsel, Mueller, being appointed. So under the heading of be careful what you wish for when you tweet President Trump, maybe he's learned a lesson in all of this.
Well, maybe you'll call him Tweety Pie in the future, but the reality here is it wasn't the smartest thing to do. I agree with you on that. It wasn't smart. He could wind up with getting a subpoena for any tapes that they may have. Now, we do know, Gloria, and I fought the White House for years under various administrations, that the White House does have surveillance in there. And in fact, the Secret Service tracks wherever the president goes. There's sensors underneath the carpet. They do probably have tapes somewhere. It's just that he doesn't have control in the Office of Administration. So I agree with you. It wasn't the smartest thing to do. I don't think it caused an obstruction of justice investigation. Not the tapes. Other issues did. And of course, Comey was instrumental in leaking information, which caused that. And I believe that was illegal.
All right, let's talk about the Bill Cosby case. Prosecutors are now vowing to retry the comedian. The remarks come after a Pennsylvania judge declared a mistrial this past Saturday. Cosby was accused of aggressive, indecent assault against a college administrator. This was back in 2004.
We have one victim. We have Andrea Constant. She has shown such courage through this. She's entitled to a verdict in this case, and the citizens of Montgomery County, where this crime occurred, are entitled to a verdict in this case, and we will push forward to try to get that done.
Now, while Cosby's lead attorney is pleased with the verdict, he doesn't consider it to be a clear victory.
It can't be a loss. Having said that, there are no winners here. We tried a case for a week. The jury deliberated for 50-some hours without a verdict. But, you know, as I've said many times before, as long as you can leave that courtroom with your client, presumed innocent as he began, then I'm satisfied.
But that certainly was not the reaction from Cosby's spokesperson.
The jurors, they used their power to speak. So the legacy didn't go anywhere. It has been restored. And for all those attorneys who conspired, like Gloria Allred, tell them to go back to law school and take another class.
Gloria, first off, do you have any plans to go back to law school?
I've been practicing law for 41 years. I have a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Trial Lawyers Association. And no, I think what Mr. Wyatt needs to focus on is the fact that there's going to be a second criminal trial of Mr. Cosby. That's not something any defendant wishes to face. And now there was an announcement today that Mr. Cosby is planning to do a tour, giving perhaps workshops or speeches this summer to persons who, on the theme is how to prevent false allegations of sexual assault. I say to Mr. Cosby, here's the way to prevent false allegations of sexual assault. Don't drug or sexually assault women. That's the message that should go out to your audiences, assuming anyone would come.
Now, Gloria, you're one of the attorneys representing a Cosby accuser. Right now, there are about 60 women that have accused him of sexually assaulting them, but this is the only one that actually resulted in a criminal trial. Why is that?
That's true, and it's most likely because since the statute of limitations had expired for most of the accusers for a possible criminal prosecution of Mr. Cosby on allegations of rape or sexual assault. In other words, that arbitrary time period set by law had expired, that perhaps many of the accusers then didn't even go to law enforcement, or if they did, then perhaps the allegations were not sufficient to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in the mind of a prosecutor. We're working to change the law, but the point is there are also civil cases out there. I have one I'm going to court next week on, allegation by Judy Huth against Mr. Cosby. And in her lawsuit, she alleges that when she was 15 years old, she became the victim of sexual misconduct by Mr. Cosby at the Playboy Mansion. That's an allegation of child sexual abuse. Very, very serious.
Well, you know, Gloria is an excellent lawyer. I can vouch for her. I've known her for a while. But the reality here is, Gloria, it's very tough to win a case like this when it takes that much time to come forward with the people who are the victims. And that's the problem I thought the jury had with that. It took about 20 years. Apparently, she made 24 calls to Cosby after this alleged assault occurred. That doesn't help. It was a very difficult case to win. And I don't care for Cosby. I don't like his politics. I never thought he was funny. Maybe the course that he's teaching on how to avoid sexual abuse allegations he can give to his friend, Bill Clinton. You know, I represented all the Clinton women who were being sexually harassed, as they alleged, and threatened to be quiet in the 1990s when the Clintons wanted to get reelected. But I'll tell you something here. To retry Cosby is a futile act at this point. You and I are both from Philadelphia. I actually grew up in Montgomery County. I think this prosecutor is really stretching it to take this back to court. I have no sympathy for Cosby, but I don't think he's going to get convicted.
Well, Larry, first of all, it wasn't 20 years until Andrea Constant brought this to the attention of law enforcement. It was only about 1 year. And her, explanation, if it is in fact something that has to be thought about. If a victim or an alleged victim is afraid, doesn't think she'll be believed, feels ashamed, for whatever reasons, is afraid to tell, then that's something that sexual assault experts testify about on a regular basis, certainly did in this particular trial. And it's understandable, because look what happens when victims or alleged accusers come forward. They get attacked right away. And also, by the way, the numerous calls that you allege that she made to him, she had to make calls she was working for Temple University as an operations manager, and she was involved with the basketball team. He was a trustee of Temple. He was a supporter of the basketball team, and it was her job to be in good communication with the trustees. And so we don't know that those calls were about anything but business. So it's not fair to jump to any other conclusion.
Gloria, if it was that easy, he'd be convicted right now. There are problems in this case, and that's what I'm saying. But I'm sympathetic with victims of sexual abuse, obviously. And when the Clinton women asked me to represent them, I very happily agreed, because it's wrong.
In the couple minutes we have remaining, I want to real quickly bring up O.J. Simpson. His next parole hearing is scheduled for July 20th. If he's granted parole, he could be released as early as October. Gloria, I know you represented the family of Nicole Brown Simpson during the O.J. Simpson murder trial. Do you think that O.J. will be paroled?
He may be paroled, and he has actually been granted parole some years ago on some of the 12 charges on which he was convicted in Nevada. But, you know, they're going to take into consideration, has he been a good prisoner, a model prisoner? Apparently he has. They're going to take into consideration his age. But I find some of his statements that he made in his former parole hearing some years ago before this same parole board really disgusting, when he talks about how he has missed some of the important events in his children's lives and his sister's life. Well, yes. Well, what about Nicole Brown Simpson? I know he's not been convicted of that, although he's found liable.
Real quickly, has Nicole Brown Simpson's family, have they contacted you?
Yeah, I mean, and certainly his own children and the family, you know, have missed their mother. Denise, I know Denise. I have been in communication with Denise, although not about that. But all I can say is I hope that he does not get parole, although it won't surprise me if he does.
All right. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Hope to have both of you back on again. Gloria Allred, thank you so much for joining us here on Newsmax Now.